The cargo crate was not supposed to move. Kang Tai-ho stood in the dark storage room of his ship, the silent road, and watched the metal box shake. It was a small movement, just a tiny shake. But in the cold silence of space, even small things become loud. He had found the crate floating near an old shipping route. It was marked for disposal, thrown away like garbage. But his scanner had picked up something inside. Something alive. Now, standing 3 meters away, Tai-ho could hear breathing. Weak and scared breathing, like a small animal hiding from danger. He was 34 years old. He had brown eyes, short black hair, and the kind of face that did not smile often. He had been a medic in the war, back when Earth still fought against the Karth Empire. He had seen many things. Dead friends, burning cities, children crying for parents who would never come back. After the war ended, he bought this old cargo ship and started moving goods between planets. It was quiet work, lonely work. But Tai-ho liked lonely. Lonely meant safe. Lonely meant no one else could get hurt. He walked slowly toward the crate. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. The breathing inside stopped. Whoever was in there had heard him. Tai-ho stopped and waited. He did not reach for his weapon. He did not call out threats. He just stood there, patient like a stone, and let the silence grow. After a long moment, he spoke. His voice was low and calm. "I am not going to hurt you," he said. "I am going to open this crate now. Please do not attack me. I really do not want to get bitten today." He waited again. No response, but no attack either. Tai-ho knelt down and pulled the release handle. The metal sides of the crate fell away with a loud clang. And there, curled up in the corner like a frightened bird, was a woman, but she was not human. Her skin was pale silver, smooth like polished metal under moonlight. Her hair was white, long and tangled, falling over her thin shoulders. Her eyes were the color of deep violet flowers, and they stared at Tai-ho with pure terror. She was Sarani. Tai-ho knew the Sarani. Everyone in the galaxy knew them. They had once been a proud species, teachers, diplomats, artists. But the Karth Empire had conquered their world 50 years ago. Now the Sarani were slaves. They were bought and sold like furniture. They worked in houses of rich aliens. They served drinks. They cleaned floors. Some were treated even worse. This one looked like she had been running for a long time. Her silver skin was covered in dirt and bruises. Her ribs showed through her torn clothes. She was so thin that Tai-ho could count the bones in her arms. She pressed herself against the back of the crate, as far from him as she could go. Her violet eyes moved to his hands, checking for weapons. Then to his face, looking for anger. Tai-ho did not move. He stayed on his knees, keeping himself low and small. "What is your name?" he asked. She did not answer. Her mouth was pressed in a tight line. She was waiting for him to grab her, to hit her, to drag her somewhere dark. "My name is Kang Tai-ho," he said. "This is my ship. I found you floating in the trade route near Sector 7. Someone threw you away." Still nothing. Just those scared violet eyes watching him like he was a monster. Tai-ho sighed. He reached into his jacket pocket, and the woman flinched hard. But he only pulled out a small bottle of water. He placed it on the floor between them and pushed it gently toward her. "You have been in that box for at least 2 days," he said. "Maybe more. You need to drink." She looked at the water like it was poison. Tai-ho stood up slowly and stepped back. He walked to the door of the storage room and stopped there, turning to look at her one more time. "There's a bounty on you," he said simply. "I saw it on the network. The Karth are looking for a Sarani woman who escaped from a merchant ship. The reward is good money." Her face went white with fear. Her whole body started to shake. Tae-ho watched her for a moment. Then he spoke again. I am not going to collect it. She blinked. The shaking stopped, just for a second. There is a room down the hall, Tae-ho continued. Third door on the left. It has a bed, a lock on the inside, and a small bathroom. You can stay there. I will leave food outside your door. You do not have to talk to me. You do not have to thank me. You do not have to do anything. He turned to leave. Why? Her voice was rough and broken, like she had not used it in weeks. Tae-ho looked back. Why what? Why help me? She was staring at him now, not with fear but with confusion. Like he was a puzzle she could not solve. You are human. Humans sell us too. Humans buy us. Humans use us. Why would you help? Tae-ho thought about that question. He thought about the war. He thought about the things he had seen humans do. The good things and the terrible things. He thought about his daughter, who had been 7 years old when the bombs fell. He thought about his wife, who had died holding their daughter in her arms. He thought about all the times he wished someone had helped them. Because no one else will, he said. Then he walked away, leaving the door open behind him. For a long time, the woman did not move. She sat in the broken crate, holding her knees to her chest, waiting for the trick. Waiting for him to come back with chains. Waiting for the cruelty that always came. But the hallway stayed empty. The ship stayed quiet. And after an hour, she finally reached out and took the water bottle. It was cold and clean. She drank it all in seconds. Then, slowly, carefully, like a wounded animal learning to walk again, she crawled out of the crate. She found the room he had told her about. Third door on the left. She opened it and looked inside. It was small but clean. A simple bed with white sheets. A tiny bathroom with a working shower. And on the inside of the door, just like he had promised, there was a lock. She stepped inside and closed the door. Her fingers touched the lock. Such a small thing. Just a piece of metal. But to her, it meant everything. She locked the door. Then she sat on the bed, put her face in her hands and cried. Outside, in the cockpit of the silent road, Tae-ho sat alone in the pilot chair. He stared out at the stars. Somewhere in the distance, the Korath were searching for a lost piece of property. They would be angry. They would be hunting. He had just made powerful enemies. But when he closed his eyes, all he could see was violet eyes filled with terror. And something inside him, something that had been cold and dead for years, felt warm again. He did not know her name yet, but he knew one thing for certain. No one was going to hurt her on his ship. Not while he was still breathing. 3 days passed on the silent road. The woman did not come out of her room. She stayed behind the locked door, silent as a ghost. But every morning, when Tae-ho left food outside, the plate from the night before was empty. So she was eating. That was good. Tae-ho did not push her. He did not knock. He did not ask questions. He simply went about his work, flying his ship through the dark spaces between stars, and let her heal in her own time. On the 4th day, he found her standing in the hallway. She was still thin and pale, but she had cleaned herself. Her white hair was brushed and fell down her back like fresh snow. Her torn clothes were gone, replaced by an old shirt and pants that Tae-ho had left outside her door. They were too big for her. She looked like a child wearing her father's clothes. When she saw him, she froze. Her violet eyes went wide. Her body became stiff, ready to run. Tae-ho stopped walking. He raised his hands slowly, showing her they were empty. "Good morning," he said. She did not answer. But she did not run either. They stood there in the narrow hallway, two strangers from different worlds, looking at each other across a gap of fear and silence. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was soft, barely louder than a whisper. "My name is Vila." Tae-ho nodded. That is a nice name. It is not my real name, she said. It is the name they gave me when I was sold. Sirani slaves are given short names, easy names, names that masters can remember. Something cold passed through Tejo's chest, but he kept his face calm. What is your real name? He asked Dot. She was quiet for a long moment. Her eyes looked somewhere far away, at memories he could not see. I do not remember, she finally said. It has been too long. Tejo understood. Some things once broken could not be fixed. Some pieces, once lost, could never be found again. He had his own lost pieces, his own forgotten things. Vila is a good name, he said. In the old Earth language, it means sail, like the sail of a ship that catches the wind. She tilted her head, curious. Wind? Moving air, Tejo explained. On Earth, we had great oceans of water. Humans would build wooden ships with big pieces of cloth called sails. The wind would push the sails, and the ships would move across the water. Vila blinked slowly. That sounds beautiful. It was. She noticed the past tense. She did not ask about it. The Sirani were good at reading pain in others. They knew when not to press. Days turned into weeks. Vela began to spend more time outside her room. She would sit in the common area, watching Tejo work. She would walk through the cargo hold, touching the metal walls like she was making sure they were real. Sometimes, late at night, she would stand at the big window in the observation deck and stare at the stars. Tejo gave her space. He never asked where she came from. He never asked what had been done to her. He just continued his quiet routine, fixing things, flying the ship, cooking simple meals. But one night, everything changed. Tejo was sitting alone in the cockpit. The lights were dim. The ship was flying on autopilot through a quiet sector of space. In his hands, he held an old photograph. The photo showed a woman and a little girl. The woman had kind eyes and a warm smile. The little girl was laughing, her small hands reaching toward the camera. His wife. His daughter. He did not know that Vila was watching him from the shadows of the hallway. She had woken up from a nightmare and gone looking for water. But when she saw him sitting there, alone in the dark, she had stopped. Now she watched as he stared at the photograph. She watched as his thumb moved gently across the faces, like he was trying to touch them through time. The Sirani had a gift. They could feel emotions like colors in the air. Strong feelings created strong colors. Anger was red. Fear was yellow. Joy was bright white. From Tejo, Vela felt something she had never sensed before. It was a deep, quiet blue. The color of an ocean at night. The color of grief that had become a permanent part of someone's soul. He had lost them. She did not know how. She did not know when. But she knew, with the certainty of her species, that this man carried his dead with him everywhere he went. And yet, he had still found room in his heart to help a stranger. Vila stepped back into the shadows. She returned to her room without making a sound. But that night, she did not sleep. She lay in her bed and thought about the human in the cockpit. All her life, she had been taught that other species were dangerous. The Korath were cruel masters. The Heathen were cold traders. The Malari were violent hunters. Every species wanted something from the Sirani. Every species saw them as tools to be used. But this human wanted nothing. He did not ask her to work. He did not ask her to serve him. He did not even ask her to be grateful. He simply gave her food, gave her safety, and asked for nothing in return. It confused her. It scared her. And somewhere deep inside, in a place she had thought was dead forever, it gave her hope. The next morning, she did something new. When Tejo sat down for breakfast, Vila came and sat across from him. She did not speak. She just sat there, eating her food, sharing the same table. Tejo looked at her for a moment. Then he nodded slightly and went back to his meal. They ate in silence. But it was not an empty silence. It was the silence of two people who did not need words to understand each other. After that, Vela started joining him for every meal. She would sit in the cockpit while he flew the ship. She would hand him tools when he fixed broken machines. They rarely talked about anything important. Just small things. What stars they were passing. What the food tasted like. Whether the ship's heating system was working properly. But sometimes, in the quiet moments, their eyes would meet. And in those moments, something passed between them. Something that did not have a name yet. One evening, Viola found Tejo in the cargo hold, organizing boxes. She watched him work for a while. Then she spoke. "You are strange," she said. Tejo looked up. "Thank you. I did not mean it as praise. I know." He almost smiled. Almost. "What makes me strange?" Vela walked closer. She stopped a few feet away, keeping a safe distance, as she always did. "In my life, I have met many species," she said. "I have served Karth lords who beat me for speaking without permission. I have been sold to heathen merchants who treated me like furniture. I have seen the worst of the galaxy." She paused, her violet eyes searching his face. "But I have never met anyone like you," she continued. "You are alone. You are sad. You carry pain that would break most beings. And yet, you still choose kindness. You still choose to help someone who can give you nothing in return." Tejo was quiet for a long moment. His brown eyes looked tired but not cold. "Maybe that is why," he finally said. "Because I know what it feels like to have nothing. Because I know what it feels like to need help and find none." He turned back to his boxes. "The galaxy is cruel," he said. "I cannot change that. But I can change what happens on this ship. On the silent road, no one is property. No one is a tool. Here, you are just Vela. Nothing more. Nothing less." Vela stood there frozen. Her heart was beating fast. Her eyes were burning with tears. She refused to let fall. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever seen her as a person instead of a thing. She wanted to thank him. She wanted to tell him what his words meant to her. But the words stuck in her throat. She had spent so many years in silence that she had forgotten how to speak her heart. So instead, she did something else. She stepped forward and picked up one of the boxes. It was heavy, but she lifted it anyway. "Where does this go?" she asked. Tejo looked at her. Something warm flickered in his tired eyes. "Shelf 3, he said. "On the left." She carried the box to the shelf. Then she came back for another one. They worked together until the cargo hold was organized. They did not talk much. They did not need to. And somewhere in the silence, in the simple act of working side by side, something began to grow. Something neither of them had expected. Something that felt like home. The alarm woke Tejo from a dreamless sleep. He was out of bed and running to the cockpit before his mind was fully awake. Red lights flashed in the hallway. The ship's computer was repeating the same message over and over in its cold, flat voice. "Warning! Unknown vessel approaching. Warning! Unknown vessel approaching." Tejo reached the cockpit and looked at the scanner screen. His blood turned to ice. A Karth cruiser. Fast and deadly. It was heading straight for the silent road. He had known this day would come. He had hoped it would take longer. He had been wrong. Behind him, he heard soft footsteps. He turned and saw Vela standing in the doorway. Her silver skin looked pale in the red emergency lights. Her violet eyes were fixed on the scanner screen. She knew what that ship meant. "They found me," she whispered. Tejo turned back to the controls. His hands moved fast, checking systems, calculating options. The cruiser was faster than his old cargo ship. He could not outrun them. He could not outfight them. The silent road had no weapons worth mentioning. How long? Vila asked. Her voice was steady, but he could hear the fear underneath. 2 hours, Tejo said. Maybe less. Vela closed her eyes. When she opened them again, her face was calm. The face of someone who had accepted their fate. I will go with them, she said. Tejo stopped what he was doing. He turned to look at her. What? If I surrender, they will take me and leave you alone. She tried to smile, but it was the saddest smile he had ever seen. You have been kind to me. I will not repay that kindness by getting you killed. Tejo stood up from his chair. He walked toward her slowly. When he was close enough to see the tears forming in her eyes, he stopped. No, he said. You do not understand, Vila said. The Korath do not forgive. If you try to protect me, they will kill you. They will destroy your ship. Everything you have will be gone. I said no. Why? Her voice cracked. Why would you die for me? I am nothing. I am a slave. A piece of property. I am not worth your life. Tejo looked at her for a long moment. His brown eyes were steady and calm, like deep water that nothing could disturb. You are not property, he said. Not on my ship. Not anymore. And I will not hand you over to people who will treat you like you are. But you will die. Maybe. He shrugged. Everyone dies. The question is what you do before it happens. What you stand for. What you protect. He turned and walked to a storage panel on the wall. He opened it and pulled out a small bag. Inside were tools, water, dried food, and a knife. There are maintenance shafts under the floor of the cargo hold, he said. They lead to a small space near the engine room. Even if they search the ship, they will not find it unless they tear the whole thing apart. He handed her the bag. You will hide there until I deal with them. You will them. Vila took the bag, but her hands were shaking. And if you cannot deal with them? If they kill you? Tejo reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. He pressed it into her palm. This is the key to the escape pod. If I do not come for you within 6 hours, take the pod and run. Head for Earth space. Tell them Can Tejo sent you. There are still good people there. They will help you. Vila looked at the key, then back in his face. Her violet eyes were swimming with tears. Why? She asked again. Why would you do this for me? We have known each other for only a few weeks. I am a stranger. Why would you give your life for a stranger? Tejo was quiet. Then he reached into another pocket and pulled out the old photograph. The woman with kind eyes. The little girl who was laughing. Her name was Yuna, he said softly. My daughter. She was 7 years old when the bombs fell. She was scared. She was alone. And no one came to help her. He put the photograph away. I could not save her. I was too far away. Too late. I arrived just in time to hold her body. His voice was steady, but his eyes were wet. I have carried that failure with me every day since. It is the heaviest thing I own. He looked at Vila. I cannot go back and save my daughter. I cannot change what happened. But I can choose what I do now. I can choose to be the person who helps. The person who stands between the hunters and the hunted. He put his hand on her shoulder. It was the first time he had touched her since they met. Someone should have saved Yuna. No one did. But someone can save you. And that someone is going to be me. Vila could not speak. The tears were falling now, running down her silver cheeks like rain on metal. Go, Tejo said gently. Hide. And whatever you hear, whatever happens, do not come out until I come for you. Promise me. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. I promise, she whispered. Tejo nodded. Then, without another word, he walked past her toward the cargo hold. Vila followed. He showed her the hidden panel in the floor. He helped her climb down into the dark space below Dot. Before he closed the panel, she grabbed his hand. Tahoe. He looked down at her, his face half hidden in shadows. "Please do not die," she said. "Please come back." He almost smiled. "I will try." Then the panel closed and Viola was alone in the darkness. Above her, she heard footsteps as Tahoe walked away. She heard the distant hum of the ship's engines. She heard her own heartbeat, loud and fast in her ears, and she prayed to whatever gods might be listening. Please let him live. Please let this strange, sad, kind human live. An hour later, the Korath cruiser arrived. Viola heard the sound of the ships connecting. She heard heavy boots walking through the silent road. She heard rough voices speaking in the harsh Korath language. Then she heard a new voice, cold and smooth, like a knife made of ice. Where is she, human? That was their leader. The hunter. The one sent to bring her back. I do not know what you are talking about. Tahoe's voice was calm. This is a cargo ship. I carry machine parts and food supplies. Nothing else. You are lying. The cold voice was closer now. Our trackers followed her signal to this sector. Our network says you found a disposal crate near Route 7. A crate that was supposed to contain dead cargo. The crate was empty when I found it. Just garbage. I threw it out. A long pause. Then the sound of something hitting flesh. Tahoe grunted in pain but did not cry out. I will ask you one more time, the cold voice said. Where is the Sarani? And I will tell you one more time, Tahoe replied. There is no Sarani on this ship. Another hit. Harder this time. Vela pressed her hands over her mouth to keep from screaming. Search the ship, the cold voice commanded. Every room, every corner, every shadow. Find her. Viola curled into a ball in the darkness. She could hear boots stomping through the ship above her, doors being kicked open, boxes being thrown. But the hidden space held. The maintenance shaft was invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. Hours seemed to pass. In truth, it was probably only 30 minutes. Finally, she heard the cold voice again. Angry this time. She is not here. I told you, Tahoe said. There is no Sarani. Another long pause. Then a sound that made Vela's blood freeze. The click of a weapon being loaded. I do not believe you, human. I think you are hiding her somewhere. And I think you will tell me where, eventually. Everyone breaks. Everyone talks. It just takes time. Then I guess we will find out, Tahoe said. How much time do you have? A laugh. Cold and cruel. I have all the time in the universe, little human. The question is, how much pain can you take before you beg me to stop? In the darkness below, Vela closed her eyes, and in her heart, something changed forever. This human, this stranger from a species she had been taught to fear, was going to let himself be tortured to protect her. She had never known anyone like him, and she realized, in that moment of darkness and fear, that she would rather die than let him face this alone. But she had promised. She had promised to stay hidden. So she stayed in the dark, tears streaming down her face, and listened as the nightmare began above her. The Korath hunter's name was Draven. He was tall, even for his species. His skin was dark gray, his eyes were yellow like a predator's, and his body was covered in old battle scars. He had hunted escaped slaves for 20 years. He had never failed. Not once. Now he stood in the cargo hold of the silent road, looking at the human who knelt on the floor before him. Tahoe's face was already bruised. His lip was bleeding. One of his eyes was starting to swell shut. But he had not spoken. He had not broken. Draven found this interesting. Humans, he said, walking in a slow circle around his prisoner. Such a strange species. Weak bodies. Short lives. No claws, no armor, no natural weapons. And yet, you spread across the galaxy like a disease. He stopped in front of Taeho and crouched down to look him in the eye. What makes you think you can stand against the Korath Empire? What makes you think you can protect one little slave from us? Taeho spit blood onto the floor. His one good eye stared back at Draven without fear. I do not think, he said. I just do. Draven smiled. It was not a friendly smile. I have broken stronger beings than you, human, warriors, soldiers, people who thought they were brave. He leaned closer. They all break in the end. And so will you. He stood up and nodded to the two soldiers behind Taeho. Make him talk. The beating began. Fists, boots, the hard end of a rifle. They hit him in the stomach, in the ribs, in the face. They kicked him when he fell. They pulled him up and hit him again. Tae-Ho did not scream. He did not beg. He took every blow with a grunt of pain and got back up. Every time. Over and over. Draven watched with growing frustration. Where is the Sarani? He demanded. I told you. Taeho gasped through bloody teeth. She is not here. More hitting. More pain. The soldiers were getting tired, but Taeho just kept getting back up. In 20 years, Draven had never seen anything like it. Most prisoners broke within minutes. They cried. They begged. They told him everything he wanted to know just to make the pain stop. But this human was different. This human was still fighting. Draven raised his hand, and the soldiers stopped. Why? He asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. Why do you suffer for her? She is nothing to you. A stranger. A slave. Worth less than the fuel in your ship's tanks. Why endure this pain for someone so worthless? Taeho lifted his head. His face was a mess of blood and bruises. But his eyes were still clear. Still steady. Because she is not worthless, he said. Not to me. Something flickered across Draven's face. Confusion, maybe. Or something deeper. You are a fool, he said. Maybe. Taeho tried to smile, but it came out as a grimace. But I am a fool who keeps my promises. Draven stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned to his soldiers. Leave us, he said. Wait by the airlock. The soldiers looked surprised, but they obeyed. When they were gone, Draven pulled out his own weapon. A long knife with a blade that glowed faintly in the dim light. I respect you, human, he said. More than I have respected anyone in a long time. So I will give you one chance. One final chance to walk away from this alive. He placed the tip of the knife under Taeho's chin, forcing him to look up. Tell me where she is hiding. I will take her and leave. You will live. Your ship will survive. You can go back to your quiet little life, carrying cargo through the stars. Taeho looked at the knife, then at Draven's yellow eyes. No? He said. No? No. Draven's eyes narrowed. Then you choose death. I choose to keep my promise. Draven pulled the knife back. For a moment, he just stood there, looking at this broken, bloody human who refused to bend. So be it, he said. I will kill you slowly, and when you are dead, I will tear this ship apart until I find her. Your sacrifice will mean nothing. Taeho smiled. A real smile this time, even through the pain. Maybe, he said, but at least I will die standing. Draven raised his knife, and that was when Taeho moved Dodd. It happened so fast that Draven barely saw it. One moment, the human was on his knees, broken and bleeding. The next moment, he was in motion. Taeho's hand shot out and grabbed Draven's wrist. His other hand came up and slammed into Draven's elbow, bending the arm the wrong way. The knife fell from Draven's grip. Taeho caught it before it hit the ground. He drove the blade into Draven's leg. The hunter screamed and fell backward. Taeho was on top of him in an instant, the knife at his throat. How? Draven gasped. You were broken. You were finished. Tejo's bloody face was inches from his own. I was never broken, he said. I was waiting. The two soldiers came running back at the sound of their leader's scream. Tejo rolled off Draven and grabbed a metal pipe from the floor. The first soldier swung at him. Tejo ducked under the blow and slammed the pipe into the soldier's knee. The soldier went down, howling. The second soldier pulled out a gun. Tejo threw the pipe. It hit the soldier in the face, and the gun went off wild. Tejo closed the distance in 3 steps and drove his fist into the soldier's throat. The soldier collapsed. Choking for air, Tejo turned back to the first soldier, who was trying to stand. He kicked him hard in the head. The soldier stopped moving. Now only Draven was left. The hunter was crawling toward the airlock, leaving a trail of blood behind him. His leg was useless. His face was twisted with pain and rage. Tejo walked toward him slowly. Every step hurt. His ribs were broken. His face was a ruin. He could barely see out of his swollen eyes. But he kept walking. Impossible, Draven gasped. No human could survive what we did to you. No human could fight back like that. Tejo stopped in front of him. You do not know humans, he said. You think we are weak because we are small. You think we are easy because we feel pain. But you do not understand. He grabbed Draven by the collar and pulled him close. Humans do not fight because we are strong. We fight because we have something to protect. We fight because we choose to fight, no matter the cost, no matter the odds, no matter how much it hurts. He let go, and Draven fell back to the floor. Now get off my ship. Draven looked at him with something new in his yellow eyes. Not anger anymore. Something else. Fear. He crawled to the airlock. He dragged his wounded soldiers with him. When they were all inside, Tejo sealed the door and watched through the window as they disconnected their cruiser and flew away. He stood there until the ship was just a small light in the distance. Then, his legs gave out. He fell to the floor, blood pooling around him. The pain was everywhere now, filling his whole body like fire. He had pushed too hard, done too much, but he had won. He closed his eyes. In the darkness of the maintenance shaft, Vila had heard everything. She had heard the beating. She had heard Tejo refuse to give her up, again and again. She had heard the fight. She had heard him win, and she had heard him fall. She broke her promise. She climbed out of the shaft and ran to the cargo hold. When she saw him lying there, covered in blood, her heart stopped. Tejo! She dropped to her knees beside him. Her hands pressed against his chest, feeling for a heartbeat. Tejo, please wake up. His eyes opened slowly. Just a crack. He tried to smile, but it came out wrong. You were supposed to stay hidden, he whispered. I do not care about the promise. Tears were falling down her face. I do not care about anything except you. She pulled him into her arms, holding him tight against her chest. He was heavy and broken and covered in blood, but she did not let go. You saved me, she said. You stupid, brave, wonderful human. You saved me. Tejo's hand reached up and touched her face. His fingers were weak, but gentle. I told you, he said. I keep my promises. Then his eyes closed, and he went limp in her arms. Vela screamed. She held him close and screamed until her voice broke. Then she picked him up somehow and carried him to the medical bay. She did not know much about human medicine, but she knew enough. She worked through the night, stopping the bleeding, setting bones, cleaning wounds. She did not sleep. She did not rest. She just kept working, because the alternative was losing him, and she could not lose him. Not now, not ever. The medical station floated on the edge of free space, far from the reach of the Qarth Empire. It was a small place, built for travelers and traders who needed help between the stars. The doctors here did not ask questions. They did not care where you came from or what you had done. They just healed people and sent them on their way. Taeho had been unconscious for 3 days. Vela had not left his side for any of them. She sat in a chair next to his bed, watching his chest rise and fall, counting each breath like it was precious. The doctors had done their work. His bones were set. His wounds were closed. Now he just needed to rest and heal. But rest did not come easy to Vela. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him standing in front of Draven, broken and bleeding, but refusing to give her up. Every time she tried to sleep, she heard the sound of fists hitting flesh. She heard him fall. She heard the silence that came after Dot, so she stayed awake. She watched him breathe. And she waited. On the 4th night, she finally broke down. It was late. The lights in the medical station were dim. Most of the other patients were asleep. Outside the window, stars drifted by in the endless dark. Vela looked at Taeho's face. Even bruised and swollen, there was something peaceful about it. Like he was finally resting after carrying a heavy weight for too long. She reached out and touched his hand. His skin was warm. His fingers twitched slightly at her touch, but he did not wake. The words came out before she could stop them. "I do not understand you," she whispered. "I have met so many species. I have seen what the galaxy does to people. It makes them hard. It makes them cruel. It teaches them to care only for themselves." She squeezed his hand gently. "But you are different. You lost everything, and instead of becoming bitter, you became kind. You met a stranger in a broken crate, and instead of seeing profit, you saw someone who needed help." Tears began to form in her eyes. She did not try to stop them. "I have been a slave for so long that I forgot what it felt like to be safe. I forgot what it was like to not be afraid. I had given up. I thought the universe was nothing but pain and chains and cruel masters who would use me until I broke." The tears fell now, running down his silver cheeks. "And then I met you." She leaned forward, her forehead almost touching his shoulder. "You gave me a room with a lock. You gave me food without asking for anything. You looked at me like I was a person instead of a thing. You fought an empire to protect me. You almost died for me." Her voice was shaking now, barely more than a breath. "You are my haven now, human," she murmured. "I did not know your kind could be this. I did not know anyone could be this." She closed her eyes and let the tears fall. She did not see Taeho's hand move. She did not notice his fingers slowly curl around hers, and she did not hear the soft change in his breathing as he woke. Taeho had heard everything. He had been floating in darkness, lost in a sea of pain and exhaustion. But her voice had reached him. Her words had pulled him back to the surface. One syllable at a time, he kept his eyes closed. He did not want to interrupt. He wanted to hear what she really thought when she believed no one was listening. And what he heard broke something inside him and rebuilt it at the same time. Haven. She had called him her haven. He had not been anyone's haven in a long time. Not since his wife and daughter. Not since the war took everything that mattered. He had spent years alone, flying through space, trying to forget what it felt like to be needed. But now this woman, this brave, wounded, beautiful woman who had survived horrors he could not imagine, was sitting beside him and calling him her safe place. He tightened his grip on her hand. Just a little. Just enough for her to feel. Vela's eyes snapped open. She looked down at their joined hands, then up at his face. His eyes were open, tired and bruised, but open. And in them, she saw something that made her heart stop. He had heard her. "How long have you been awake?" She asked, her voice small. "Long enough," Her face turned a deeper shade of silver. If she could blush, she would have been bright red. "I thought you were asleep," she said. "I did not mean for you to hear that. I know." His voice was rough from days of sleep, but warm. "That is why I did not move. I wanted to hear what you really think." She tried to pull her hand away, embarrassed. But he held on. "Do not be ashamed," he said. "I am glad you told me. Why?" He turned his head to look at her properly. His swollen eyes studied her face like he was seeing her for the first time. "Because I feel the same way." Vila went still. Her violet eyes went wide. "What?" Tejo tried to sit up. He winced as his broken ribs complained, but he pushed through the pain until he was facing her. "I have been alone for a long time," he said. "After the war, after losing my family, I thought I would never let anyone close again. It was safer that way. If you do not care about anyone, you cannot lose them." He lifted his other hand and touched her cheek. His fingers were gentle against her silver skin. "But then I found you in that crate, scared and alone and waiting for me to be like everyone else. And something woke up inside me. Something I thought was dead." Vila was crying again. But this time, the tears did not feel like grief. They felt like relief. "I do not know what comes next," Tejo continued. "The Korath will not forget what happened. Draven survived. He will come back, or others will come in his place. The danger is not over." He looked into her eyes. "But I do know one thing. I do not want to face it alone anymore. And I do not want you to face it alone either." Vela let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "Are you asking me to stay?" She asked. "I am asking you to let me be your haven," he said. "For as long as you want. For as long as I'm breathing." For a moment, neither of them moved. The universe hung in balance around them, waiting for her answer. Then Viola leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will stay." They stayed like that for a long time. Foreheads touching. Hands intertwined. Two broken people who had found each other in the darkness and decided to heal together. When Vila finally pulled back, she found that she was smiling. A real smile. The first one she had smiled in years. "What happens now?" she asked. Tejo smiled back. His face was still a mess of bruises, but somehow he had never looked more alive. "Now we rest," he said. "We heal, and when we are ready, we get back on the silent road and keep flying." "And the Korath?" "Let them come." He squeezed her hand. "They will learn what humans do when they have something worth protecting." Vela laughed. It was a small sound, fragile and new, but real. "You are a strange species." She said, "I know." "And you are a very strange man." "I know that, too." She looked at him with eyes full of something she had never expected to feel again. "Thank you," she said. "For everything." Tejo shook his head. "No, thank you. For giving me something to protect again." Outside the window, the stars continued their endless dance. Somewhere far away, the Korath were planning their revenge. The galaxy was still cruel and cold and dangerous. But in the small room of a medical station on the edge of free space, two people who had lost everything found something new. They found hope. They found purpose. They found each other. And when Vela woke up the next morning, her head resting on the edge of Tejo's bed, she found that their fingers were still intertwined. She did not let go. Neither did he. And somewhere in the dark halls of a Korath command ship, a report was being updated. A record of a failed mission. A note about a human who would not break. Draven read the report with cold yellow eyes. His leg was wrapped in bandages. His pride was wounded deeper than his flesh. He pressed a button and spoke into the communicator. "The Sarani woman is still protected. The human is more dangerous than expected. A voice crackled back. "What are your orders?" Draven looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a human and a Serani were healing together, becoming stronger together. "We wait," he said. "We watch. And when the time is right, we finish what we started." He cut the connection and stared into the darkness. This was not over, but for now. In a small room far away, two people slept peacefully for the first time in years, safe in each other's arms, home at last.